Hello and welcome everyone. Today we are kicking off the new Devon and Beyond webinar series called Oracle Cloud Security Series. Super excited to launch this series and we are all glad that you joined us today. We all know how important security is for safeguarding data, ensuring privacy, monitoring of devices, protection against cyber threats, and the list goes on. So each month we will cover a new topic and in those topics, we'll share best practices and strategies with you. So please don't forget to bookmark the security webinar series landing page. I'll be putting that link in chat soon. So in January and February, we'll meet on third Friday at 10 a.m. PT like today. And March onwards, you will see us on every third Monday at 10 a.m. PT. For those who are new to Devon and Beyond, these webinars are hosted on Cloud Customer Connect, which is our Oracle community forum for end users. If you have not already, I invite you to create a free account on Cloud Customer Connect, join in discussions, ask questions, and look for upcoming events on various topics. My name is Renu Bhatt. I'm program lead with the Custom Enablement team. And today I'm joined by Josh Hammer, Field Chief Security Architect, and Andre Nato, an architect here at Oracle. So today we are reviewing OCI security architecture and how you can use OCI tool to configure your tenancy to align with the registered benchmark. And with that, I will hand it over to Josh.
We're going to cover three topics today. One is about OCI security architecture. The other is the shared responsibility model. And then we're going to talk about the CIS OCI Landing Zone. And believe it or not, this story is really nicely sandwiched in the way of Oracle side to your side. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everyone. All right, I'm going to dive right into the OCI security architecture. Now, for a lot of you, you've probably seen cloud architectures. You might have even built them on premises. But when a cloud provider like Oracle came into this space, we actually took a very different approach to our cloud. We called it a Gen 2 cloud. And a lot of those reasons came from we hired a lot of people from other cloud providers and said, we're going to give you a chance to build from scratch. Where were the challenges you ran into? Are there any ways you can find new opportunities to improve them? And believe it or not, they found a lot of really great opportunities to make improvement. We also challenge them to be able to support our own application infrastructure, things like our Fusion SaaS application and our database, which have extremely high performance requirements. The first thing we did, though, we started with what we call the hardware root of trust. And this is a spectacular feature, which allows all of our images, both host operating systems, as well as things like the firmware, to make sure that they're getting pristine copies every time they load. So when we deploy new hardware infrastructure and the firmware needs to be flashed for replacement, we go to this hardware root of trust, which is using signed software, to validate the signature and to validate the code. So we are basically ensuring that when we spin up new hardware or compute instances or virtual images, you're getting pristine, clean software that we can verify. Now, we went to the next level, and here is actually where we benefit, where security and performance get benefit. We created an isolated virtual network that supports cluster networking using RDMA. When we designed our hypervisor, we really did our best to prevent the need for having a heavy hypervisor. So what we did is we isolated out the network card from the hypervisor, meaning when the operating system needs to make a network call, instead of going to the processor and having the processor call the NIC, we're going directly to the NIC. And what this allows us to do is two things. One, it provides us a way where an operating system takeover cannot impact the network, meaning you can't break out from one instance to another. And then what we did is we have a second hidden physical network check. So the network card is checking, we're moving to the physical network to check, and then when it goes back into the same network card. So you're getting 3 network checks to make sure. And we're doing this low latency RDMA networking approach with these dedicated NIC cards so that the operating systems, when they are accessing the data, can access it at extremely high performance. That high performance is what has benefited our Oracle RAC database clusters, as well as why a lot of customers are bringing their high performance computing workloads and artificial intelligence applications to us because of this low latency. The next thing we did is we needed to provide customers with the ability to manage and control their accounts. And we knew that a lot of the challenges customers used to run into is that account sprawl. I have an account here, this team's got an account, that team's got an account. So when we create an account for you, we call it a tenancy. And in that tenancy, we create a set of compartments that you can then create in a hierarchical structure. Think of them like folders on an operating system. You can go up to 6 deep. So this way you can understand where your resources and your controls are. And just like a folder in most operating systems, they provide a blast radius and an isolation level. And then what we've been able to do is provide this in a variety of regions. And because if you've noticed, a lot of this stuff is at hardware levels, like the operating system and the hardware root of trust, we've been able to deploy out to a wide set of regions, 48 with 4 more planned this year. And even some with Azure interconnects as well, some for the sovereign governments, all over the place. And this architecture that we developed for OCI allows us to deploy it so quickly. And as you'll see later, it also allows us to deploy this anywhere extremely quickly. It is a massive global footprint that allows you to support your customers to be as close as possible and to provide your disaster recovery and resiliency requirements. Now, you're probably thinking, well, this is a lot, and how am I going to keep an eye? Well, first of all, I'll tell you how we keep an eye. So Oracle has a security operations team, and they follow the sun model, which is very efficient across the globe. Each one of these teams is monitoring the infrastructure 24/7. We are making sure both that the information data coming in is being analyzed and protected. If there's any issues, they're being populated, and we are handling lots of requests and insight we're taking on and responding to. All of this is being managed and maintained in our variety of data centers. And our data centers are either ANSI, TIA, Tier 1, Tier 3, or Tier 4, all with the N2 redundancy architecture built into play. So you're getting that benefit of the deployment, you're getting that management, and you're getting these teams that are keeping an eye on it and ready to respond at a moment's notice across the globe. Now, this type of security operations center allows us to achieve a variety of compliance programs across the globe. And there are some that are obviously, as you can see, are regional, meaning that they are isolated to the region they're in. I always like the one for GDPR. It's obviously Europe. And we also have things like BSI for Germany. And then we have ones focused on the federal government. And then we have industry specific ones. And I bet you here you're probably seeing, oh, there's 1 or 2 that I probably use as well in your organization. Now, the next thing we have is what the idea of global, right? Oracle follows an interesting security approach. We have been developing software for 40 plus years. We have a security model that has been built into our Oracle Security Software Assurance. And believe it or not, how Oracle manages its security operations, its software development, its incident response, everything is available on our OSSA webpage. You'll see some resources later. And this OSSA and this rigorous approach that we follow for security bar allows us to achieve the different global compliance requirements by aligning to them. And you can see like SOC 2 and ISO, all of those are available, as well as CSA. This is how Oracle helps maintain our part of the shared responsibility model. And that is one of the beginning parts for the shared responsibility model. Almost all of my conversations with customers start here, because when I talk to customers, I'm always trying to understand, from what perspective are you asking me this question? In a lot of cases, the customer might be asking, how does Oracle do it? And you saw, we've done it. We have a variety of certifications verified by third parties that you can go look at to make sure that we're doing it. The next question I ask, if they're asking about how, is how do you want to do it? So the next question I have to ask them is, what are the services, what are the features or tools that you're using within your Oracle Cloud to deliver the service to your customer, right? You're using our infrastructure to deliver services for your customer. So if you look at the beginning of it, and I think the shared responsibility model is very powerful here in this picture. When you think about it, something as simple as I'm just going to run all of my Oracle databases and my applications on Oracle Cloud. I'm just going to take my servers and lift them and shift them. What you're really saying here is I'm going to use a lot of the infrastructure as a service components. And in that case, I'm going to be spinning up operating systems. I'm going to be laying out binaries for my code, maybe installing application servers, and then I'm going to maybe spin up some data storage, and then I'm going to be deploying it. Now, we're going to take care of a lot of that. You know, as you saw, physical, infrastructure, virtualization, the network, all of that's going to be fully available to you. but you're going to be responsible for how you actually own the operating system, how you take care of things. And you're also going to be responsible for creating your own little private network in the cloud to manage it and what controls you want to put on that in addition to what we're providing. And you're going to be responsible for protecting your data and understanding how users can access both the infrastructure that you're controlling, right? The servers, as well as the console and the application, 3 layers. Now, as you kind of move up the stack, and Oracle has a variety of platform as a service services. And we're going to actually play a little game later to see what you guys have gleaned from this after this talk. Is you're responsible for a little less. With the platform services, we're actually trying our best to take away that operating system management for you. And for those of us that live in the world of operating system management, we know that there's a lot of great features of managing your own, but it can sometimes be beneficial to offload that to a third party. And in this case, our platform services do that. You can look at things like Autonomous Database. You can look at things like our Oracle Analytics Cloud or Oracle Integration Cloud that allow you to start building, and you don't have to worry about patching the operating system that it's running on. And then you become responsible for just a little bit less. And then you can look at the far right here. And this obviously is where Oracle Fusion SaaS applications come into play, where you are responsible for managing your data and managing control to the application. Now, I know you're saying, I kind of knew this. However, there's a bit more to it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take you through some examples of how, as a customer, you can understand how to look at the shared responsibility model when you are trying to understand, what am I responsible for in this service? Because that diagram that I showed you in the beginning talked to you about what is the cloud provider responsible for at a very high level. And that's usually where I think our audience was at. And for the people that are a bit more experienced, they're going to start to think, okay, I can provision a compute instance. Now, from an OCI side perspective, when you create that compute instance, right, it's just a server running Linux. That instance, you get to pick what network it is. You had to create the network to sit in it. You have to determine what ports and protocols are going to be open on that network interface. You have to decide, will that instance be encrypted with my own managed key, or will I allow Oracle to take care of it? We'll make sure it's isolated. But you have to decide a lot of those things. You have to decide who has access to the underlying service, the server, who has access to turn on and off the server from the cloud console. And we also provide a unique feature, which I really love, which is tagging. And the tagging can be mandatory, meaning all things in this compartment must be tagged production, or optional, where you can, freeform, where you can tag automatically who created the resource. And tagging is a great way to get you some insight into what's going on and why is that instance where it is and who created it. Now, another example I always like to pull out is, all right, what if I created a bucket? So a bucket is basically like a folder, like a kind of like a Dropbox, but a folder in the cloud, right? I just put files there. So in this case, I'm no longer responsible for any operating system. You just get this folder, and we're going to encrypt it with our own key by default. And then you just determine, what do you want to put in it? And whether you want to encrypt it with your own managed key. And then you just need to determine whether how you want to log and monitor it and who can access the bucket. And once again, tagging. Tagging is a really crucial part to understanding what part of your infrastructure is running there, as well as what is the data sensitivity of those resources. So you're probably thinking, well, these are just 2 examples, and Oracle has over 100 services, so this seems like a lot. Oracle has an innovative approach to cloud security, and I really like this. And it is a goal here to be 3 key things. And when we talk about simple and effortless, and this to me is the heart, and this I love the most, we want to be prescriptive, simple and prescriptive. And the reason I find prescriptive so helpful is that as a customer, as someone who's helped use these services, you're always trying to understand, how do I do my side of the shared responsibility model? And we want to be as prescriptive and helpful with you as possible. And we want to make sure it's simple to use. And you're going to see how we can do this later when we are talking about the Center for Net Security Landing Zone. We also want to make sure that when you're using our tools, our services, our IaaS and our PaaS and our SaaS, they all interop together, so that you're not trying to figure out, well, how do I make this thing talk to that? We make sure that our PaaS services like Integration Cloud can talk seamlessly to our SaaS applications like Fusion. And we want to make sure that even our cloud services are all integrated, so that you can get the ability to use them and not have to worry about, will service A work with service B? And we want to give you control as much as possible. And we call it complete control. But what you'll see is we allow you to not only deploy in the cloud, in government regions, but you can even take our data centers, our cloud infrastructure, and you can get dedicated regions in your own data centers. Very powerful feature. So you're probably thinking next, how do I do this stuff? All right. Oracle provides a full stack of cybersecurity capabilities. Now, you can look at things about how to protect your data, whether it's those key management features, whether it's the ability to scan your database with data safe. We also provide you with a variety of Oracle Linux, both regular, automated, a variety of default images. We provide you with the ability to get hardened images from the Center for Internet Security from our marketplace. And then we're going to make sure that that software is still being managed and being verified by our hardware root of trust and signed. And then we're going to give you the ability to configure your entire network in the cloud, from virtual networks, the ability to tag individual servers with network security groups, provide you with a firewall in the cloud. And I'm not just talking about, port protocol. I'm talking next generation firewalls backed by Palo Alto Networks VM series. Bastion services, so you don't even need to have public access to access your services, the ability to connect on premises through Fast Connect or VPN, and then comes to where it cuts across the space. Identity and access management and the preventative controls. Our IAM, every service has it. There's no different service for one versus another. So when you want to manage your keys, it's the same IAM that you're going to use to manage access to your server, who could spin up your servers. And those are controlled through the compartments and policies. And our policies are written in plain English. Well, almost plain English, but they are extremely easy to read. And that makes it much easier for your auditors as well as your team to write policies that people can consume. We obviously want you to use your third party and integrate with your standard single sign-on, which is why we provide federation. And then we provide something called security zones. We allow you to say, these are things I never want to see. I never want to see a public internet gateway or a public bucket. You could put these preventative controls at the compartment level to ensure that nothing can happen because these things override even the IAM controls preventing it. And then the next level is detective and monitoring. How am I keeping an eye on my space? We provide our own cloud security posture management tool called CloudGuard. We have a threat detection service and threat detection data. We have a logging service, vulnerability scanning. We natively turn on our audit. It's the equivalent of AWS CloudTrail. It's on by default, and you can't turn it off. And it's available. It's always on. We provide you that to go look at. We have a tool that allows you to review your user access in OCI itself, and the ability to even go look at what's the traffic happening on a network card. And we provide you with security at the edge with a web application firewall. And because we are a cloud infrastructure provider, we are taking care of DDoS at level 3 and 4 for you, for our services. Now, you're saying that's a lot of services. How much does this all cost? Most of our services from the security perspective, when we go back to that idea about wanting to be simple and prescriptive and providing complete control, we don't want you to have to choose. Most of our services are included with your cloud subscription. Meaning, so a service like CloudGuard, for example, there is no additional charge for it to monitor your cloud infrastructure in OCI. And that's extremely important. And we look to do that as much as possible, where we want security to just be on by default and for you to want to choose it and not have to decide between, can I afford it or not? Now, this whole suite of products, we're going to talk about how to help you design it. But the other thing we have is a large partner ecosystem. And that large partner ecosystem allows you to bring your own tools or enrich our tools with third parties. And I'm hoping you're seeing some of your security providers up here. I know I work with a lot of customers that use a lot of these tools, whether it's our Center for Internet Security hardened images, as well as the benchmark checking tools across the space. So please do. And our SIMs like Stellar Cyber and Splunk. There's a huge plethora of tools. So if you do get a chance, definitely go check out what's available in our marketplace. So I'm coming here now to talk to you about how we help make it prescriptive and simple, and how we also help you make your control more end-to-end integrated. And this is where we have automated what we consider security best practices and the Center for Internet Security benchmark in an OCI tenancy. And here's what we're doing is we're actually providing you with this best practice, with these network designs, with this architecture in an automated fashion. And these configurations cover hundreds of guidelines across 25 different vendors from CIS. So I'm going to actually pop up another poll right now because I'm kind of curious today. When your organization deploys out a cloud, do you know what it look? Can you tell me if you have a standard landing zone available? And while I do this, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Andre Correa to present more about the Center for Internet Security Landing Zone.
By the way, thanks, Josh, for for your piece, presentation. That was a very good segue to what I want to talk about here, folks. And I'm Andre Correa. I'm an architect in OCI, and along with Josh, we are the architects and authors for what we call the CIS Landing Zone. Thanks for answering those questions. So, okay. Yeah. So when you start off with OCI, it can be a little bit challenging, of course, because we have so many services, right? So many resource types, so many security services, and it's normal. Okay, where do I start, right? And most importantly, how can I start securely in OCI? And the CIS Landing Zone aims to answer exactly those questions. And in a sense, it helps you fulfilling your piece, right? The customer piece of the shared responsibility model. Because with the landing zone, we prepare, a fully functional tenancy. So you can simply, deploy your workloads, deploy your compute instances, your databases, your analytics services, right? In a secure way. So to get everyone on the same page, I'd like to talk a little bit about what the CIS is, the Center for Internet Security, and what its main deliverables are. So the Center for Internet Security is an independent, it's community-driven and nonprofit organization in the cybersecurity space that essentially defines industry-agnostic security best practices for IT and systems in general, right? And these best practices, they are materialized as CIS controls and CIS benchmarks. Controls are essentially a recommended set of actions that will prevent most cyber attacks, but they are kind of somewhat high level. As you can see here on the right-hand side under CIS controls V8, right? Those are examples of what a control is, like, for instance, configure data access control lists. That can mean many different things depending on what is the target system that you're applying that control to, right? Then it comes the benchmarks. The benchmarks are a set of concrete manifestations of these controls applied to specific systems, like cloud providers or OCI. And right now in OCI, we are in the 5th iteration of the benchmark, which is our version 2.0.0. And the good thing, of course, just want to reemphasize that why CS controls and benchmarks are important? Well, mostly because they are defining this consensus-based approach by security experts across the industry. And the reasons why we chose to pick CIS as the foundation to build our landing zone on is because mainly two things. First, it is very concrete, right? So if we look at 1.1, for instance, here, ensure service level admins are created to manage resources of a particular service. That is very, very prescriptive. So we know exactly what to do. And second thing is that it's a foundation for the many industry frameworks that we have out there, like PCI, like NIST or HIPAA and others, because you can essentially crosswalk the benchmark into the controls, and then from the controls, the CIS framework, you can crosswalk to these industry frameworks, right? So if someone is trying to be like PCI compliant, it might be the case that the CIS landing zone is covering maybe 80, 85, 90% of those requirements. So it essentially jumpstarts everyone that's trying to be compliant with some industry framework. And so what are the main principles that guided us to build this landing zone? Well, first of all, the CIS Foundations benchmark. And we blended that with architectural best practices that we bring, from all the work we do in our daily work with our customers, and also experience that we bring building SaaS services in OCI. Many of us here, that created this solution, we came from OCI engineering, where we were helping, many SaaS services to deploy in OCI. And by getting these two together, we end up prescribing a solution that has an opinion, right, on how things should be done from the get-go. And of course, we took a step forward. We automated that, this prescription that embeds CIS foundations and best practices into a Terraform configuration. So, and we call that the quick start, because we wanted it to be very, very easy to use and quick to deploy. Essentially, you can essentially fill out a few parameters in the interface that I'm going to show in a bit, and you can, in a single push of a button, create an entirely tenancy configuration that is fully functional in day one. It is included, and Josh alluded to that. So OCI thinks that customers should not pay for basic security features, right? And the OCI and the landing zone essentially deploys, piggybacks on that philosophy and deploys security services that are included, right? You don't have to pay any extra for deploying the landing zone. And last but not least, the solution is publicly available in GitHub. It's open source. It can be used as is today. You can customize it, or you can just look at it, and be inspired to create your own landing zone. So within the Quick Start project, this public GitHub, we actually have two independent deliverables. First is this Terraform template that I've been talking about so far. Right? I have the GitHub address here and deployment guide. But also we have a very, very powerful companion, which is the checking script. Because it might be the case that you deployed your, you already have a landing zone in OCI, or you don't have a landing zone, but you have some resources that you deployed. And you want to know if you're in compliance with the CIS benchmark. Then you can simply take this script and run it against your tenancy, and it tells you exactly where you are compliant, where you're not. And again, these two are completely independent. You don't need one to run the other. Okay, I wanted to make that very clear. And the script, by the way, is just a Python script that it scans your tenancy across all subscribed regions, and will give you a report. I have a little demo at the end that I'll show you. And these two solutions have been certified by the CIS organization itself. The Terraform implementation is a certified configurator, and the script is a certified assessor. All right, but let's take a look at exactly what is in this landing zone thing, right? First of all, we start where things begin. I'm assuming here you have an empty tenancy, but you don't necessarily need to have an empty tenancy. Let's assume you have an empty tenancy, and all there is a root compartment. By the way, everything that you create in OCI, you create inside a compartment, because there is this character that is the root compartment. And by the way, compartment is a very, very crucial construct in OCI. It resembles resource groups in AWS. Like, I think the most remarkable difference is that compartments, they stretch across regions, while resource groups in AWS are regional. So when you create a compartment in OCI, you don't need to repeat that process. If you extend your landing zone to another region, the compartment is already there. And we deploy a set of children compartments on the root compartment, right? We always deploy this network compartment, security, app, and database. Optionally, we can have a compartment for holding Exadata infrastructure deployments. And we have, as an optional feature, this enclosing compartment that essentially helps us with having multiple landing zones. So each enclosing compartment would characterize a different landing zone or just a different environment, like picture dev test prod, right? You could isolate your resources in this way as well by using this approach. And along with the compartments, we deploy a set of groups, or we can reuse a set of groups that you may already have in your tenancy. These groups could have been synchronized from an external identity provider, and the landing zone can essentially intake these groups and associate them with compartments. And I'll touch upon how we do that in a bit. And one important aspect to notice here, we have colors here, they have a meaning. So we want network admins, for instance, to manage network resources in the network compartment only. And the same goes for security. We want the security admins they have the saying about what goes in the security compartment. They are the only ones who manage security compartment resources. The same goes for app, database, Exadata, right? But the thing is, administrators that are deploying a compute, for instance, in the app compartment, right? They don't need to define a network, but they need to be able to use networks that are deployed here by network admins. And the landing zone takes care of that by means of policies that we're going to see in the diagram in a bit. Before the policies, though, in the landing zone, we deploy a very key set of security services in following some best practices. For instance, we deploy CloudGuard at the root level, so CloudGuard can oversee your whole tenancy, right, and report on bad configuration and bad activity. Likewise, we deploy security zone within an enclosing compartment. So, as Josh said, it's preventative. It will prevent you from having a public bucket or from having a bucket encrypted with an Oracle managed key, right? Things like that. It's preventative, while CloudGuard is detective. We deploy policies. So these policies, they are the ones that tie the groups with resources that will be eventually deployed in these compartments or at the tenancy level. We capture IAM events up here. Things like, we want to inform people about when a group is deleted, when a user is created, when a policy is updated, that kind of things. Those are important events in the infrastructure that we want to make some specific people aware about. Of course, we create a budget. We don't want our customers to be surprised by things that they deploy on the landing zone and start generating costs for them. So we proactively create a budget, and of course you set the parameters of the budget, like you set the budget amount, and when you want to be notified about that, the threshold that would trigger alerts. And that's essentially done through this little infrastructure here. We call it the notifications infrastructure for budgets that have in the root compartment. So yeah, the arrows here, they went a little bit quick, sorry, but I described them a little bit before. They essentially represent the policies. So the segregation of duties that the landing zone implements, right? We don't want application administrators or database administrators, defining networks. We believe that's a thing that network administrators know how to do. And they prepare that, and they just tell the database, hey, database folks, you guys have a network for you. You can deploy your databases in the subnet. You can use this network security group, the security rule. The database don't need to worry about that. They just need to be told where to deploy the database. The same goes for clusters that you create in the app compartment, or container deployments, or just simple compute instance deployments. And of course, some groups here, you see, they are have a kind of neutral color, which means that they don't manage things or resources in the colored compartments, but they do they do manage resources at the tenancy level, at the root compartment level. And they may do things across compartments, which is the case, the storage administrators, that we essentially give permissions to delete storage. So we don't let people that create storage to delete them. That has to be done by someone else. Just a security measure here. Auditors, of course, everybody needs an auditor role because, with read access across the tenancy, for reporting purposes. Inside the network compartment, on demand, of course, upon request, the landing zone will deploy a standard 3-tier network, which is with a public subnet and 2 private subnets. And this, what we call this network in OCI a VCN. So it's the same as a VPC in AWS. A VCN stands for Virtual Cloud Network. And we create VCNs that are completely pre-set up to handle any workloads. I mean, 3-tier workloads in this case. And they are fully pre-configured with all the gateways. So we have internet gateway, we have net gateway, we have a service gateway, we have a dynamic routing gateway. So these all have specific purposes in OCI, and the landing zone makes sure to deploy them correctly. We have Bastion, we have NSGs, stands for Network Security Groups. Network Security Groups are a basic form of firewall that OCI has in VCNs. They support protection using, origin, destination, port, and protocol. So you can do a lot with NSGs, and we use them in the landing zone to avoid things like a load balancer that gets eventually deployed in a load balancer NSG to talk directly to a database, right? In a 3-tier network, we want requests from the LB or load balancer to go through an app layer first. And the app layer is the one that talks to the database. So we make sure that's all, pre-configured for you. We extend that notion of a standard 3-tier network to also account for an Exadata network, which has very specific requirements. So the landing zone will create this type of network so you can land your Exadata deployments very, very quickly. In the security compartment, we of course deploy the security-related services like vaults and keys, the vulnerability scanning, logs. We aggregate all logs that we grab, across all compartments in the security compartment. We can optionally deploy a service called the Service Connector Hub that works as a log aggregator, so that you can essentially get all those OCI logs, send them through the Service Connector Hub, and Service Connector Hub can send those into a stream, into an object storage bucket. It can send those logs to a function. I think the one very classic use case is sending all the logs to a stream, and that stream is essentially consumed by an external SIEM service like Splunk. So in this way, you can essentially send all your OCI logs into the external service that you use to monitor all your security events and incidents. And last but not least, we have these grayed out icons here. They represent workloads that you deploy on top of the landing zone. So the landing zone itself will not deploy these resources. We have in the compartments where we have them is where the landing zone expects that they get deployed on. So they are kind of the second piece, your day 2, right? Your day 1 is the landing zone. Your day 2 is your workloads deployments, and we expect them to be here. And once you have them here, you can rest assured that you have all the segregation of duties, pre-configured for you. You have all the administrators pre-set up for those resources. And this is the basic network that we deploy, but we can extend that very easily. This network topology very easily to support hub and spoke topology, where you would basically deploy a third-party firewall in a hub to do traffic screening, and only then you would be, letting the requests go to the bespoke networks. That's very easily configurable in the landing zone UI. All right, that was about the Terraform configuration, right? The certified configurator by CIS.
How do you manage your cloud infrastructure today? Do you use Terraform or use the console?
Most people, I think a majority here is using the console UI. So I feel like the CIS Landing Zone is a very great start. And people that are using a mix of the above, console and Terraform, that's okay. But that's that's not the best practice exactly when we are doing Terraform. The rule of thumb is you start with Terraform, we stick with Terraform, or sooner or later you're gonna be running into a few issues, right? Because Terraform, by its nature, it may override things that you do in the console. Then it can get a little bit confusing. The good news also is that a few folks here are already fully embracing DevOps. So as I said, the Holy Grail. Thanks for the answers, folks. So let me talk a little bit about the compliance checker. We call it the compliance checker, which is that Python script, remember? So it essentially we looked into that benchmark and we said, you know what, let's automate this thing end to end. And that's exactly what it does. It will verify all the recommendations that we have in the benchmark, and will provide an HTML report at the end that you're going to be able to see where, if you're compliant or not. There is an optional feature in the script that we check for Oracle best practices. So we extended the benchmark and we check for best practices like, do you have redundant customer connectivity, right? Do you have a budget? So budgets are not in the recommendations from the benchmark, but we do check for them. Do you have a service connector hub, right? To do logging consolidation, right? Do you have you customized your CloudGuard targets, right? So they reflect best what you are mostly interested in, like detecting. So again, the message here, just we do all the checks in the benchmark, and we extended that with some very interesting, and Oracle best practices that people should be aware about. And as I said, we produce a report, and this report you can drill down from the summary into the very specific occurrence. And from when you find the occurrence, you can actually click the occurrence, and we'll land you into your tenancy, right? In the page where that occurrence is, so you can remediate it, right away. You won't, spend any time searching. We're gonna get to exactly where you want to fix the problem. All right. Now I have two quick demonstrations. So I will first show you how we deploy the Terraform, the Terraform Quick Start using Resource Manager. Resource Manager, by the way, is a managed service provided by OCI, which is essentially Terraform as a service. It essentially does state management under the covers on your behalf. So you don't need to worry about locking your state file. It really helps, when teams are working with Terraform. So let me start the demo. As I said, we have this available in GitHub. So this is a page. There is a deploy to Oracle Cloud. When you click that, we land in your tenancy Resource Manager service. And at this moment here, the Resource Manager service is ingesting the configuration that we have available in the GitHub repo, right? So it's reading all that. Once it does, and it's gonna finish this piece right now. Yeah, it completed that. We give it a name. So here, what we just paused, we are creating a stack. A stack is a Resource Manager object that essentially represents your Terraform configuration. And you're going to manage the life cycle of that deployment only through this stack. Advancing here, now this is what the configuration, the landing zone quick start exposes as configuration parameters, right? So remember, the quick start is a single push of a button. So we abstracted away all that complexity that goes behind, right? Like dealing with Terraform resource types, Terraform logic. You don't need to worry about that. All you care about is knowing how to use this interface, so it does what you need it to do. And a service label is a key parameter. We use the service label to prepend all the resources that we create, so we avoid any name clashing. Right? It might be the case that you already have resources with some names, so be sure to provide a unique name here, and this will get prepended to all your resources, so there will be no name clashing. We choose the compartment where we want to deploy the landing zone. Right, this is going to be our parent compartment, and here you see we are deploying one VCN. I'm giving it the CIDR range. So the CIDR range of that VCN, the network, is going to be this. So it will deploy one VCN for me with 3 subnets. And here I have options. See, to deploy Exadata VCNs, we can have options to deploy a hub and spoke topology. We have options to set who can connect to our network from the internet. We have who can connect from on-prem, which CIDR ranges are allowed to connect to my OCI VCN from on-prem. Who should be receiving notifications about events related to networking, and here related to security. This we support a list here. We can deploy object storage. We can enable CloudGuard, or not. And once we enable CloudGuard, we want to know. We also want to let people know about things that are happening with CloudGuard. The same, well, not the same. Sorry. We enable security zones. Remember the preventative control that will prevent bad configuration from happening. The service connector, the logging consolidation, right? Vulnerability scanning. We want to enable vulnerability scanning for all instances or containers that are eventually deployed later on your day 2. The default budget, you see here we have the percentage, we have the budget amount. People should be notified about that. We won't run an apply immediately. We want to go through the usual Terraform flow. So we plan, plan is Terraform's dry run, right? So we're essentially figuring out what this configuration will do. You see here, the plan succeeded. It's 116 resources are going to be created. That's what the landing zone is going to do. So a lot of resources in a single shot. And then we apply and we pick the plan that we previously generated. We click apply, and then that plan is going to be applied. If it doesn't fail, successful here. 116 resources were created. And you have a fully functional tenancy to land your workloads on. Now I have a demo about the script. So how we run the script? We can run the script, from your laptop. All you need is the terminal. But in OCI we have this tool called Cloud Shell, which is a terminal that any OCI user has in OCI. So you don't need to run it from laptop. You can run it from Cloud Shell. So let's see. See the Cloud Shell menu up here. So it pops out this terminal here, and we're creating a directory here that we're gonna use to run the script. Create that directory. We cd in that directory, and then we get the script. wget. We got the script here. Then remember, that's a Python script. We're just gonna do Python, the script name, -dt. -dt essentially uses the connected user in the console to execute the script as. And see it's going through all the regions. First the home region, then need to go through the regional, the regions. So it processed, it's very quick. The script is it's blazing fast. It did all that. And this is all real time, by the way. And it generates an HTML report that we're just gonna grab here, right, from Cloud Shell. So we download the results into the laptop, and we will open up that. And you see, here's the beautiful HTML formatted report. And we can, if you want, drill down into, see there's a CSV file associated with non-compliant items. And if you go to the CSV file, you're gonna see, the offending resources. And there is that deep link. You see the deep link field here is actually a link that will land you into the OCI console that you can remediate the finding. I think that I finished this presentation, and Josh, I will handle it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today. We want you guys to remember, we're doing our best here at Oracle to help provide you with a simple, effortless, deeply integrated infrastructure to help you control your environment. We're doing that through automation, through things like the CIS Landing Zone. And we hope you found this helpful today. And, there's a lot of questions in the chat about, where can I learn more about different things, or how can I, someone was asked about Terraform. They great answers. How can I learn more about networking? There's more sessions coming up. Take a look at the agenda. There will be some deep dives on networking. We have a variety of information here. I tried to break it up. On the left side, the links here are focused on the Oracle side of the shared responsibility model. Told you that would come back to us. Followed by the things on the right side to learn about the Oracle Cloud infrastructure and guidance. And on the bottom right here, this one little section right there is where I did sneak in how you can understand how to configure your side as well. So this the top part on the left is about us, how you can do it, and then this is how we automate it through the CIS Landing Zone. Appreciate everyone's time. I'm going to wrap this poll up, and please, happy clouding.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Josh and Andre, for kicking off the security series. It was a great session, and I'm sure everyone learned something new today. Our next session will be on Friday, February 16th, where we'll cover identity and access management. You'll be able to see the session info on the landing page in about 1 or 2 business days. Please do not forget to check the other webinars offered under Day 1 and beyond. And with that, thanks, Chris, for looking at the questions and answering those questions in Q&A. And thank you all for joining, and we'll see you all next time.